The policy up until now has largely been a failure, and so it's good to see the President and administration have acknowledged that there needs to be more help there. Plus, the key, though, is even with more troops, until they start lifting some of the restrictions. I mean, we have over 3,000 troops there now. This will add to the mix. Certainly that's a good thing, but we got to lift the restrictions. You've got people who could draw in airstrikes with laser-guided components as air controllers who could be doing the job to help the allies that we have there, the Sunnis, the Kurds, and others, but we're not lifting those restrictions. I think that's an important next step.
Would it be smarter to, rather than do it incrementally, to say, what do we need to actually win this and put in a significant number of troops? I think at any time it's important. When you look at it's not just about a number, it's about making sure that any potential conflict you're engaged in, the President, in consultation with the Joint Chiefs and other military advisors, should be looking at it in exactly that context, not just an incremental amount, not just a little bit here, a little bit there, but we should look back and assess what do we need to get the mission completed and then give the resources not just to our military personnel, but to our allies in those regions. So you support this decision?
I think it makes sense. I think it recognizes that we definitely need to do more there, but I think it's critical that this is not enough. Just sending more troops there is not enough if we don't lift those restrictions on the people that are already there.
Big trade vote in the House tomorrow. You support free trade. You support giving the President fast-track authority. You don't usually agree with him. Why are you to an agreement on this?
Well, I think in the larger context, it's important to have free and fair and open trade. To me, if we're on a level playing field, our American workers can compete with anyone in the world. And if we don't go down this path, we're going to be at a competitive disadvantage. And so I think it just makes sense, and I'm hopeful they move forward.
So House Republicans who are undecided should vote yes?
Yeah, I think in the end, one of the things that's important to remember now is if the Republicans control the House, Republicans control the Senate, if this president were to give them a bad deal, they should hold him accountable and vote it down. They have every right to do that under the proposal.
Tax reform is a big issue for your party. It has been. Getting tax reform is tough. Individual rate reform, nobody thinks going to happen under this president, this Congress. So you've talked about broadening the base, lowering rates, and people like fairer, flatter, simpler. Everybody says that. When you talk about changing the tax code, and if you have a plan for that, what would you want to do in terms of the division of contribution to the overall pie of people paying taxes? Would you like the wealthiest to pay more? Would you like everybody to pay the same? Who would be the winners and losers under a Walker tax reform plan?
Well, I think if you look at what we've done in Wisconsin, it's been everyone. We've cut taxes some $2 billion. We cut it across the board, reduced rates, although the biggest beneficiaries were people in the middle of the tax bracket where the rates went down the most. And so certainly we look at ways to provide across-the-board relief but have the biggest impact in the middle of the bracket where people are increasingly hurt the most, not just in my state but around the country. I look at things like what President Reagan, the 2 rates that were established in the middle of his term. I think that's a good model. Certainly if I were to be a candidate, we'd lay out a more specific plan with greater details along the way, but that's a good premise.
Who would pay more, though? Anybody? Or you would try to have a tax plan that everyone would pay the exact same in terms of their contribution? Well,
I think in terms of what we'd look at is getting rid of the loopholes. I mean, the more you can level off and reform the system, ideally lowering rates from where they're at now. And again, I look at the model, but what Reagan had would be a good starting point.
Lowering rates, getting rid of loopholes, still begs the question, would you want middle-class, working-class people to pay less?
Yes.
Would you want wealthy people to pay less or keep them the same in terms of their overall contribution?
That's part of the debate. I certainly wouldn't be talking about anybody paying any more. And I look at not only individual rates, but I think when you think about what does it take to put more of our fellow Americans to work, having competitive tax code when it comes to our job creators is important, too. A lot of jobs are parked overseas. Right. I believe if we were competitive with the global market again, we could bring those jobs back, put more of our fellow Americans back to work.
So broaden the base, loopholes. How do you feel about the home mortgage deduction? Should that be up for consideration to be either scaled back or eliminated?
Well, I think those are important things. I mean, for us, ideally, a lot of people talk about a pure flat tax, but if you're going to have anything short of that, I think allowing people to live their piece of the American dream is a key part of that, and having a home is a key part of it.
So are you open to scaling back or eliminating the home mortgage deduction as part of overall tax reform?
That's really not on our platform right now.
So you would rule that out?
No, I'm not ruling anything out right now in the sense that we'll put a comprehensive plan on the table if we're to run. But I think in terms of general, parameters, I look at what we've done in Wisconsin, which we reduced the tax burdens by some $2 billion. Not only in income taxes, reduced in property taxes are lower today than they were before, and job creators. I think overall you put more money back in the hands of the American consumer, the American job creator. In each of those areas, you build a stronger economy.
So just, again, because the home mortgage deduction is so important to folks, and anytime you talk about tax reform, you got to got to figure out that you're not saying it's front and center for you to eliminate or to scale back, but you're open to it as part of an overall talk.
Well, I'm just saying overall, we're going to look at the entire tax code and what the best way to reform is. But I think home ownership is an important part of living the American dream.
How about the charitable deduction? Same answer?
I think it's similar. I mean, I worked one of my first jobs coming out of college. In fact, I left my senior year to go work for the American Red Cross, and I think overwhelmingly whether it's churches or charitable organizations or synagogues or other places of faith, that having the ability for those organizations to do the good work that they do is much more important in many cases than having a government.
We'll look forward to your tax plan, see what you say about those.
Sure.
Some shorter things while we finish up here. The Clinton presidency, what was the best thing about it and the worst thing about it?
Well, I think that some of the work that they worked with the Republicans in the House and the Senate on at the time on trying to get a balanced budget certainly was good. I mean, I think there are a lot of reasons that go far beyond just the leaders at that time, including the peace dividend left over from President Reagan. Certainly all the scandals, the worst part, and sadly I think for a lot of Americans, we've seen with the emails and the Clinton cash and all that, I think a lot of Americans worry that we're going to get a repeat of some of those scandals again.
Who's your closest friend now, not someone you're related to?
Well, obviously, my wife and I are married.
Not someone you're related to.
Well, I don't know that I have any one single friend. I've got a lot of folks I've known from college on. Certainly guys like the guy who's my best man, Rod McWilliams, who worked with me for years, John Hiller. But there's a wider way. We really have 5 couples that we're probably our closest friends right now that we've known since our kids were in junior kindergarten.
Where's a place in the world you've never been that you'd like to go for personal purposes?
I've never been to Australia. I'd love to. I've seen some of the scenery out there. It seems like a wonderful country. Australia, New Zealand, places like that. Never seen, but just look epic when you think about backgrounds like this.
All right, one political question. I've largely stayed away from those, but I want to ask you one. This is a big jumbled field, and everybody's trying to figure out how it's going to go.
Yeah.
Hard to figure out, right? Unpredictable even for people like
Sure,
the two of us who followed these. Some people are saying one way to stand out would be to form a ticket now. All right. Now, I know you're going to say...
I've heard that a lot,
I know you're
actually.
going to say this is premature, but the one that people keep talking about is you and Senator Rubio forming a ticket. Does that interest you in the least bit?
I like Marco Rubio a lot. Obviously, I'm deferential to governors. I think there's a lot that's we bring to the table as having proved executive experience. But I do like Marco Rubio. I think he and I have similar thoughts in national defense and foreign policy. Overall, like him, and I like the fact that you probably commented on this, that when it was his birthday, I sent a nice little tweet saying, Marco, happy birthday from 140-something to another.
So just as
there's certainly a generational issue
as
there.
a political strategist, just take yourself out and pretend it's somebody else. If Scott Walker and Marco Rubio announced, in December, we're going to run as a ticket, let's leave aside who'd be at the top, you think that would be a gimmick, or that might be something that voters would say, wow, that's a strong team, that makes sense?
I've actually had quite a few people, grassroots supporters, donors, and others who made that suggestion. I think for now, Marco is a quality candidate. He's going to be formidable in this race as things progress, and if we were to get in, we'd be as well, and we'll see where things take us.
You like the sound of Walker Rubio, though, more than Rubio Walker?
Yeah, I said Marco and I joke about it, that people mention it. We just probably have to arm wrestle over who would be top on the ticket.